I think the question is much more complex than people imagine. Firstly, it's impossible to divorce politics from the human experience. Wherever you live, there are certain power structures that are in place. People organize themselves into governments, whether they're local, they're national. So the only way to enact change in any given society is to be involved in the political process, to be involved in political engagement. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the Holy Quran, He says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِقَوْمٍ حَتَّى يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِأَنفُسِهِمْ. That God will not change the condition of a people unless they change the condition of themselves. And therefore, to say that we're going to withdraw ourselves from any type of political engagement is virtually accepting the status quo. So what we know for sure is that if Muslims don't engage in the political process, if they don't try to change the system from within, nothing's going to change. And we have a precedent for this in the Holy Quran. In Surah Yusuf, which is the 12th chapter of the Holy Quran, Yusuf alayhi salam, he was living in Egypt, and he saw that there was great economic disparity. He foresaw that there were going to be a lot of economic problems. There was economic justice. Now, he could have said that, this is a polytheistic government and I'm not going to get involved. But you find that Yusuf alayhi salam, what does he say? اجعلني على خزائن الأرض إني حفيظ عليم. Make me the head of the Treasury Department because I am trustworthy. I have integrity, which is a very important quality for anyone that wants to be involved in politics. Now, I know politics, it has negative connotations because it's seen as like a dirty game. But Yusuf alayhi salam, he dispels this misconception that you don't need to be dirty to be involved in the political process. That the first quality of anyone who wants to be engaged in the political process, that you have to be, hafiz. You have to have this quality of integrity and trustworthiness. And you also have to be alim. You have to have the knowledge, the prerequisite knowledge to fill that role. So going back to my point is that here we have an example of a prophet who is volunteering to work within a political system that does not reflect his personal religious beliefs, but he's able to use his skill set, his knowledge to enact justice that will bring economic prosperity to the wider society. I was watching an interview with Mehdi Hassan a few days ago, and I think many of you saw that. And I think he made a very beautiful point where, when a terrorist is white, he's not called a terrorist. He's called a shooter, and that shooter is typically, diagnosed by society as someone who suffered of a mental illness. It's almost as though that Muslims are immune from mental problems. We seem to have found the cure for mental illness. Whenever it's a Muslim shooter, that it's his religion that motivated him. That it's a very simplistic analysis when the shooter is a Muslim, but when a shooter is a white male Caucasian, when it's a white supremacist, that we want to go into their childhood, we want to analyze, what contributed to this person's worldview, their illness. And really, and as Mehdi Hassan mentioned in his interview, and I think that he hit the nail right on the head, that the media coverage that a Muslim shooter receives is, I think, 7 times more than if it was a white shooter. And it's one of the few times where a white person does all the work and doesn't get any of the doesn't get their due credit. So I think that there is an unfair amount of coverage when the shooter, when the terrorist, doesn't fit the stereotype that has been instilled in the minds of the viewers. But I will say that I think that the Prime Minister of New Zealand, I think, deserves a lot of credit. I think she handled the aftermath of the shooting with a great amount of integrity. She showed a great deal of compassion and empathy towards the Muslim community. And I think that she sets an example for how world leaders need to react to marginalized people, to victims of terrorist crimes. You know, social media is a tool. You know, it's kind of like it's like a knife. You can use it to cut an orange, or you can use it to stab someone. You know, social media has served as a platform to advocate for social justice. It's served as a platform to give voice to people who would otherwise not have a voice. But at the same time, you know, we know that the New Zealand terrorist also used social media to broadcast and to give a live feed to the horrific crime that he was about to commit. So it's a double-edged sword, and I think that you have to be careful with the way that you use social media. You know, you could contribute to the social ills that exist at the time. You can use it to propagate stereotypes. You can use it to propagate bigotry, or you can use it to raise awareness, to basically spread the this notion of tolerance, this intolerance for any form of bigotry. But I do think that posting a tweet or a post on social media doesn't compensate for real political activism. You know, you're not politically active because you just post something on social media. It's much more than that. So I think social media is a very powerful tool, but it's only one tool in our arsenal of political engagement.